Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Science Channel. Tonight, we are exploring the scientific frontier of longevity. Not just the number of years in a life, but the deep and fascinating question of why some lives stretch far beyond expectation, while others falter sooner than we hope. Across the world, in laboratories and in small mountain villages, scientists and storytellers alike are asking what it truly means to grow older. Is aging a steady ticking clock, or 1,000 tiny changes unfolding inside us each day? Why do some animals seem almost untouched by time, while human bodies move through such visible phases? And how much of our future is written in our genes, compared with the choices we make every day? Longevity is not only about living longer. It is about strength, memory, resilience, connection, and the remarkable biology that carries us forward year after year. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, all you need to do is relax. Let your shoulders soften as your breathing slows, and let your mind begin to gently unwind as we explore the fascinating world of aging together. Let's begin. Your lifespan is shaped by genes, but also by daily choices. Scientists sometimes describe longevity as being dealt a hand of cards, plus the way you play them. Your genes can set tendencies for things like cholesterol handling, blood pressure, and how your cells respond to stress. Then your daily habits decide how often those tendencies get pushed in a risky direction or supported in a healthier one. Identical twins offer a striking clue here. They share nearly all their DNA, yet their health can diverge over the decades when their lives diverge. What you eat, how much you move, how you handle stress, and whether you avoid smoking can shift disease risk by years. Longevity research keeps returning to a hopeful idea. Biology is real, yet it is also responsive. Small choices repeated for years can become powerful. The longest-lived people often share patterns, instead of having a singular miraculous secret. When researchers study centenarians, they rarely find one magic habit that explains everything. Instead, they see clusters of patterns that add up over decades. Many have strong social ties and daily movement built into life. Many avoid smoking. Many eat in a way that supports stable metabolism, and they tend to stop eating before feeling overly full. They often have a sense of purpose, whether it is family, faith, craft, or community. Importantly, there is variety too. Some enjoyed wine. Some did not. Some were athletic. Some were simply consistent walkers. That mix is part of the lesson. Longevity is not a fragile formula that breaks if you miss a day. It is more like a direction you keep returning to. Small, sensible habits create a lifestyle that supports health across the long stretch, and that long stretch is where the magic happens. Your future strength is built years earlier than most people expect. Strength in later life often looks like a calm kind of power. It is carrying groceries without straying. It is rising from the floor. It is steady steps on uneven ground. What surprises many people is how early the foundation is laid. Muscle and bone respond to training at almost any age, but the earlier you begin, the more reserve you build for later. Those reserves matter because life brings interruptions. Illness, injury, busy seasons, and stress can all reduce activity for a while. A larger baseline makes those dips less dangerous. Think of it like savings. You do not start saving after the emergency arrives. You save during the ordinary months, so the emergency is easier to face. The inspiring part is that strength can be built in practical ways. It can be 2 sessions a week. It can be short routines. Longevity favors consistency over heroics, and your future self quietly benefits from what you practice now. Exercise improves mitochondrial function, which matters for aging. Inside nearly every cell, mitochondria turn oxygen and food into usable energy. Over time, these tiny power plants can become less efficient, and that can ripple outward into fatigue, slower recovery, and metabolic strain. Movement pushes back. Endurance exercise, brisk walking, cycling, swimming, and even frequent stair climbing can signal cells to build more mitochondria and keep them healthier. It can also improve the way muscles handle fuel, which helps stabilize energy levels across the day. What makes this thrilling is that the effect can be surprisingly fast. After a period of consistent activity, many people notice that everyday tasks feel easier. They get less winded, and they recover sooner. In longevity research, mitochondria are a recurring theme because they sit at the crossroads of energy, repair, and information. Exercise is one of the most reliable ways we know to support them. Strength training helps preserve bone density and balance with age. Bones are living tissue that respond to load. When you challenge muscles, bones feel that pull and pressure, and they get a reason to stay strong. That is why resistance training is not only about biceps or aesthetics. It is about building a body that can catch itself. With age, fracture risk rises, and a broken hip can change a life in a single afternoon. Strength training also improves balance through better coordination and stronger stabilizing muscles around the hips, ankles, and core. Many people picture heavy barbells, but useful training can be simple. It can include bodyweight movements, bands, machines, or light weights done with good form. The goal is progressive challenge, not punishment. The most inspiring part is how trainable it remains. Even people who start later in life can gain strength and stability, and those gains translate into confidence in everyday movement. Sitting too much is linked with higher risk, even if you exercise. It is possible to do a workout and still spend most of the day nearly motionless. The body notices. Long stretches of sitting can reduce muscle activity in the legs, slow blood flow, and affect how the body manages blood sugar after meals. Over years, that pattern is associated with higher risk for cardiovascular disease and metabolic problems, even in people who meet exercise targets. The solution is not dramatic. It is often small interruptions. Standing up during calls, taking short walks, or doing a few minutes of light movement can act like tiny resets. Think of it as keeping the engine idling rather than shutting it off for hours. This is encouraging because it means longevity habits can be woven into normal life. You do not need to live in a gym. You need to give your body regular reminders that it was built to move. Aerobic fitness predicts health outcomes better than many lab tests. Aerobic fitness reflects how well your heart, lungs, blood vessels, and muscles work as a team. That teamwork shows up in everyday life as stamina and recovery. In research, measures related to cardiorespiratory fitness often predict risk of illness and early death more strongly than many individual biomarkers. It makes sense when you think about it. A single blood test is a snapshot. Fitness is a performance measure of multiple systems at once. It captures circulation, oxygen delivery, and metabolic flexibility. The beautiful part is that improvement can be tracked in simple ways. You can notice how quickly you catch your breath after stairs. You can measure how far you comfortably walk in a set time. Even modest increases can matter. Longevity is not only about avoiding danger, it is also about building capacity. Aerobic fitness is capacity you can feel, and it is a form of protection that travels with you everywhere. Blue zones are famous, but genetics and culture both matter there. The places called blue zones became famous because they seemed to produce unusually high numbers of people living to very old ages. The idea is inspiring, but the real story is more complicated and more interesting. Some researchers argue that records can be messy and that pensions, migration, and paperwork errors can inflate counts. Others point out that even when ages are verified, a community's health is rarely explained by one habit. Genes may offer a small advantage, And culture can turn that advantage into a lived reality through food, work, and social structure. Access to fresh produce, low smoking rates, and strong family support can all shape outcomes. The most useful lesson is not that one village cracked the code. It is that long life emerges from systems, and systems can be built. When you study blue zones with clear eyes, you do not lose the wonder. You gain practical insight. Okinawan traditions include purpose, community, and plant-forward meals. Okinawa's longevity story often begins at the table. Traditional diets there were once built around vegetables and legumes, with sweet potatoes as a staple for many households. Meat was eaten, but often in smaller amounts and less frequently than in many modern diets. People also talk about a cultural sense of purpose that can shape daily rhythm, and social groups that encourage regular contact and mutual support. The fascination is how these pieces reinforce each other. A community meal nudges nutrition and connection at the same time. A shared commitment to elders can reduce isolation, and that can lower stress burden in ways the body recognizes. Even daily movement can be woven into life through gardening, walking to neighbors, and active chores. Okinawa is not a magic island. It has changed over time, and modern influences have altered health patterns. That makes the lesson sharper, not weaker. Longevity traditions can be built, and they can also be lost. Sardinia has pockets of male longevity that drew global attention. In parts of Sardinia, researchers noticed something that stood out. Men were reaching very old ages at rates that seemed unusually high. That is striking because women often outlive men in many populations. Theories about why this happens have ranged from genetics to lifestyle, and the truth may include both. Some families show lineages that suggest inherited advantages, and rural life historically included regular walking across hilly terrain and a pattern of eating grass. That was less industrial and more seasonal. Social structure may have mattered too. Older men in these communities often remained woven into family life rather than being pushed to the margins. That can shape stress, activity, and daily purpose. Another intriguing possibility involves early life exposures, including infections and nutrition, which can leave lifelong marks on health. Sardinia's story reminds us that longevity is not one universal recipe. It can appear as a local pattern, shaped by geography, history, and family lines. Ikaria is known for older adults who stay socially connected. On the Greek island of Ikaria, many accounts of long life focus less on strict health rules and more on daily living that stays communal. People linger in conversation. Neighbors check on each other. Meals are often shared, and older adults may remain part of regular social life rather than being separated from it. That matters because connection can influence sleep, stress, physiology, and routine. When you have reasons to show up, you often keep moving through the day. When you have people around you, setbacks are less likely to become spirals. Ikaria is also associated with a slower pace, and that pace can reduce chronic stress load without anyone needing to measure it. The captivating part is that this kind of environment acts like invisible scaffolding. It supports healthy behavior without constant self-control. Not everyone can move to an island. The deeper insight is transferable. Build routines that include people. Make connection a default, not an extra. Longevity loves a life that stays shared. Nicoya elders often keep strong daily movement built into life. In Nicoya, a peninsula in Costa Rica, one of the recurring themes is movement that happens because life requires it. Many older adults there have historically walked, worked outdoors, and stayed physically useful in everyday tasks. This kind of movement is not a single workout squeezed into a busy day. It is a steady background of muscle activity, balance challenges, and time on the feet. That matters because the body adapts to what it repeats. Daily movement supports joint mobility, strength, and metabolic stability, and it keeps functional skills from fading. The environment may help too. A lifestyle that includes sunlight, outdoor time, and regular social contact can create multiple benefits in parallel. Nutrition patterns in the region have also been described as simple and traditional, which can support energy regulation without intense dieting. The most exciting part of the Nicoya story is its simplicity. It suggests that the biggest gains can come from designing life so movement is automatic. When activity is woven into routine, longevity stops feeling like a special project. Many centenarians report routines, not extreme health hacks. When people interview centenarians, the answers are often surprisingly ordinary. Many describe regular meals, familiar walking routes, steady sleep habits, and daily roles that kept them engaged. This does not mean they all lived perfectly. It means their lives often had rhythm. Rhythm reduces decision fatigue, and it can protect against chaotic swings in behavior. A routine walk keeps joints moving and mood steadier. A familiar breakfast reduces reliance on ultra-processed convenience foods. A weekly gathering gives the calendar structure and creates something to look forward to. The most revealing detail is that routines can absorb stress. When life gets difficult, a stable pattern can prevent everything from collapsing at once. Extreme hacks can be exciting, but they are fragile. A routine is durable. It keeps working when motivation is low. That durability may be one of the hidden engines of long life. Longevity, in practice, often looks like repetition with care. It is not glamorous, but it is powerful. Resilience after hardship is a common thread in many long lives. Many people who live a very long time have not lived an easy time. They have endured wars, economic shocks, loss, and illness. What stands out is not that hardship is good, because it is not. What stands out is how some people adapt after it. Resilience is the ability to regain function after stress, and it has psychological and biological sides. People with resilient patterns often maintain relationships, keep routines, and find meaning that helps them continue. That can reduce chronic stress hormones and support better sleep and immune function. Resilience also changes behavior. Someone who believes recovery is possible is more likely to attend therapy, do rehab exercises, and seek help early rather than waiting. The fascinating part is that resilience can be trained. Skills like problem solving, emotion regulation, and social support building can be learned over time. Longevity research increasingly recognizes this as more than a personality trait. It is a health resource that can be strengthened, and it can protect people through the long arc of life. Dental health connects to inflammation and cardiovascular risk. Your mouth is not separate from the rest of you. Inflamed gums can become a persistent source of immune activation, and that chronic signal can spill into the bloodstream. Some studies associate periodontal disease with higher risk of cardiovascular problems, though the pathways are still being mapped. Bacteria from the mouth can also enter circulation during brushing or chewing when gums are unhealthy, which may further provoke immune responses. The fascinating part is how ordinary the leverage point can be. Consistent brushing and flossing, dental exams, and treatment of gum disease may lower inflammatory burden. Chewing ability matters too, because it affects diet quality and nutrition. Tooth pain can push people towards softer, more processed foods, which can worsen metabolic health. There is also a social side. Dental problems can make people self-conscious, which reduces smiling, speaking, and connection. In longevity science, oral health becomes a quiet cornerstone. It is daily care that protects far more than teeth. Calorie restriction extends lifespan in many species under lab conditions. In controlled studies, animals given fewer calories than usual often live longer than their well-fed peers. The effect has shown up across very different creatures, from tiny worms to rodents, which makes scientists pay attention. What seems to matter is not starvation. It is a shift in how cells spend energy. When food is less abundant, the body tends to prioritize maintenance and repair, and it downshifts some growth signals. Researchers track changes in pathways that sense nutrients and stress because those pathways act like biological switches between building and conserving. In people, long-term severe restriction is complicated and can be risky, especially if it leads to frailty or nutrient gaps. Still, the core idea is powerful. The way a body interprets abundance versus scarcity can reshape the pace of aging. Intermittent fasting can change metabolism even without weight loss. Time without food is not empty time. It is a metabolic mood switch. During fasting windows, insulin levels often fall, and the body leans more on stored fuel. That shift can change how the liver handles fat and sugar, and it can influence signals linked to cellular cleanup and stress resistance. Some studies find improvements in markers like insulin sensitivity, even when body weight barely changes. That surprises people, because it suggests timing can matter alongside quantity and quality. The details are personal, though. A fasting pattern that feels easy for one person can disrupt sleep, mood, or medication timing for another. Athletes, pregnant people, and those with a history of disordered eating may need special caution. The fascinating part is the principle. Your body is not only responding to what you eat, it is also responding to when your internal chemistry gets a chance to rest. Longevity is not just years lived, it is years lived well. A longer life is only a gift if it comes with the ability to enjoy it. That is why researchers talk about function, independence, and quality of life, not only survival. A person might live to an impressive age, yet spend many years limited by pain, fatigue, or loss of mobility. Another person might live slightly fewer years, yet remain active and engaged until near the end. Longevity science tries to shift the balance toward the second story. That means preventing disease, but it also means maintaining strength, sleep, social connection, and mental health. It means protecting the ability to walk outside, to cook, to laugh, to remember names, and to feel steady on your feet. When people hear living longer, they sometimes picture a number. A better picture is a life that stays spacious enough to hold what you love. The goal is not merely more time. It is more life inside the time. Balance is trainable, and it can be strengthened like a skill. Balance feels like something you either have or you do not, but it is really a conversation between your inner ear, your vision, your nerves, and your muscles. Like any conversation, it can get clearer with practice. Simple drills can make a powerful difference. Standing on one leg near a stable surface, walking heel to toe, or turning the head while walking can teach the brain to integrate signals more smoothly. Tai Chi has become famous in research circles because it challenges balance in slow, controlled patterns, and it builds confidence at the same time. The beauty of balance training is that it sharpens reflexes before a fall begins. You learn how to correct a wobble, how to place a foot quickly, and how to keep your center steady. It is not performance. It is protection you can rehearse. Reaction time can slow, but practice can preserve sharpness. Reaction time is not one thing. It includes sensing a change, deciding what to do, and then moving the body to do it. With age, each step can slow a little, which is why quick movements like catching yourself during a trip can become harder. The exciting part is that the nervous system still learns. Activities that require coordination and timing can keep those pathways active. Dancing, table tennis, martial arts forms, and even simple ball toss drills ask the brain to predict motion and respond quickly. Video games that train attention can also help some people, especially when paired with real-world movement. Driving safety, fall prevention, and sport performance all depend on this skill. Practice works best when it is varied. Different patterns keep the brain from coasting. You are not only training muscles, you are training decision-making under mild pressure. That is the kind of sharpness that helps daily life stay safe and smooth. Flexibility matters because stiff tissues change how you move. When tissues stiffen, movement becomes less efficient. A tight ankle can shorten your stride. A stiff hip can shift load into the lower back. Restricted shoulders can make reaching overhead feel risky. Over time, these compensations can increase pain and reduce activity, which then feeds more stiffness. Flexibility is not only about touching your toes. It is about maintaining range of motion that lets you move without strain. Gentle stretching can help, but so can strength training through a full range. A squat to a comfortable depth, a controlled lunge, or lifting an arm with light resistance can encourage tissues to stay supple and strong. There is also a nervous system piece. Slow breathing and relaxed attention can reduce protective tension that limits motion. The goal is not extreme contortion. It is a body that moves easily enough that you keep using it, year after year. Hydration matters more with age, because thirst cues can weaken. Thirst is a signal, but it is not always a reliable alarm. With age, the brain's thirst response can become less sensitive, and some people drink less even when the body needs more. Certain medications can increase fluid loss or shift salt balance, and hot weather can sneak up quickly. Mild dehydration can look like many things. It can show up as fatigue, dizziness, constipation, or confusion. It can also raise the chance of falls. Hydration is not only about water. Electrolytes matter too, especially during illness with vomiting or diarrhea. For many people, the most effective strategy is routine rather than waiting for thirst. A glass with meals. A bottle kept in sight. Soups, fruits, and vegetables that carry water along with minerals. In longevity, hydration is a quiet support system. It keeps circulation steadier, digestion smoother, and the brain clearer. Grip strength is a surprisingly strong marker of later health. Grip strength seems almost too simple to matter, yet it correlates with many outcomes in aging studies. It reflects overall muscle strength, nerve function, and even how well the body has been maintained through illness and inactivity. Clinicians sometimes use it because it is quick, non-invasive, and hard to fake. A strong grip often travels with better mobility and lower frailty risk. The reason is not mysterious. Hands are the end of the chain. To grip well, you need decent strength in the forearm, the shoulder, and the trunk that stabilizes you. Grip strength is also linked to practical independence. Opening jars, carrying bags, using a cane safely, and catching yourself on a railing all depend on it. The encouraging part is that it can improve. Farmers' carries, hangs from a bar, resistance bands, and hand grippers can build it over time. In the language of longevity, a handshake can be a small health report. Chronic stress can accelerate biological aging signals in the body. Stress is meant to be brief. It helps you react, then it should fade. When stress becomes chronic, hormones like cortisol can stay elevated, and that can affect blood sugar, sleep, immune signaling, and even how cells maintain themselves. People often notice the surface signs first, like shallow sleep or constant tension. Underneath, the body can shift toward a state that prioritizes immediate survival over long-term repair. Researchers have linked chronic stress with changes in markers associated with biological aging, including patterns in gene regulation and inflammation. What makes this so compelling is that it is not only about dramatic trauma. It can be built from everyday pressure with no recovery time. The antidote is not pretending life is easy. It is creating true downshifts, such as meaningful rest, time outdoors, movement, and relationships that feel safe. Those are not luxuries. They are biological signals that tell your body it can invest in the future. Strong social ties can rival classic risk factors in its impact on longevity. When researchers compare health outcomes, social connection keeps appearing alongside the usual suspects like smoking and inactivity. That surprises people because friendship does not look like medicine. Yet relationships can influence daily choices and stress levels in ways that add up over years. A supportive friend can nudge you to walk, to eat, to rest, or to seek help sooner. Conversation also exercises attention, memory, and emotional regulation. Even simple routines, like greeting the same neighbors, can create a sense of stability that lowers chronic stress. Social ties also provide practical protection. Someone notices when you seem unwell. Someone brings food after illness. Someone helps you keep appointments, which can prevent small problems from becoming big ones. The fascinating part is that connection is not only emotional, it is physiological. Your nervous system responds to safe company by shifting toward calmer states, and that calm supports long-term health. In a world obsessed with supplements and hacks, this is a powerful reminder that people are part of the prescription. Purpose and meaning are associated with better health outcomes. Purpose can sound abstract, yet it often shows up in very concrete ways. People with a sense of meaning tend to keep routines. They get up, they engage, they keep moving through the day because something is pulling them forward. That can influence sleep timing, activity, and stress resilience without anyone trying to optimize. Research has linked a stronger sense of purpose with lower risk of certain health problems and with better survival, even when accounting for other factors. The mechanism is probably not one single pathway. Purpose can shape hormones, immune signaling, and behavior all at once. It can also change how people respond to setbacks. Illness becomes a challenge to work through, not a reason to stop caring for the body. Purpose does not have to be grand. It can be tending a garden, being a dependable friend, making music, teaching, building, or caring for family. Longevity is not only about staying alive. It is about having a reason to stay engaged with life. Learning new skills can build cognitive reserve for later years. Cognitive reserve is like having alternate routes through a city. If one road is blocked, you can still get where you need to go. When you learn new skills, you build richer networks in the brain, and that can help you function better even if some age-related changes occur. The skill does not have to be academic. It can be learning a language, playing an instrument, cooking unfamiliar recipes, drawing, or even mastering a complicated craft. What matters is effortful learning, the kind that makes you concentrate and make mistakes. That struggle is the signal that the brain is being asked to adapt. Social learning is especially powerful because it combines attention, emotion, and memory, which are deeply intertwined in the brain. The fascinating part is that this is not about being productive. It is about building resilience. By practicing new patterns now, you give your future brain more options, and options can protect independence. Sleep changes with age, but good sleep remains powerful medicine. Many people notice that sleep feels lighter with age, and it can become easier to wake during the night. Part of that is normal biology. Circadian timing can shift earlier, and the body may spend less time in the deepest stages of sleep. But at the same time, sleep becomes more vulnerable to outside forces, like pain, nighttime bathroom trips, medications, and even an overly warm room. What is remarkable is that better sleep still pays dividends at any age. When sleep improves, people often notice steadier mood, clearer attention, and more stable appetite. Recovery from exercise and illness can feel smoother too. The goal is not a perfect, uninterrupted night. It is a reliable pattern that supports the next day. Consistent schedules, morning light, regular movement, and calming pre-bed routines can help. Sleep is not a luxury add-on. It is a daily pillar of longevity. Deep sleep supports memory consolidation and cellular maintenance. Deep sleep is often called slow-wave sleep because of the brain's electrical rhythm during that stage. It is the part of the night when the brain becomes harder to wake and the body leans into restoration. Memories do not simply sit in the mind like files. They are stabilized through repeated replays and reinforcement, and deep sleep is one of the key times when that process happens. The body also uses deep sleep for repair work, including growth hormone pulses that support tissue maintenance. When deep sleep is repeatedly shortened, people may feel less refreshed even after many hours in bed, and they may notice more mental fuzziness. The fascinating part is that deep sleep is sensitive to lifestyle. Exercise, especially earlier in the day, tends to increase it. Alcohol near bedtime tends to reduce it. A cool, dark room can make it easier to reach. You cannot force deep sleep, but you can invite it. Light at night can disrupt circadian rhythms and metabolic health. Your body reads light as a signal about time. Bright light in the evening can delay the release of melatonin, and it can push your internal clock later than you intend. That shift is not only about sleepiness. Circadian timing helps coordinate metabolism, including how the body handles glucose and how hormones rise and fall across the day. When light exposure is mismatched, the body can end up eating and digesting at times when it is less prepared. Over the long term, that misalignment is linked with metabolic strain in many studies. The modern world makes this easy to trigger. Overhead lighting, televisions, and phone screens can all add brightness at the wrong hour. The hopeful news is that small changes help. Dimmer lighting after sunset, warmer colored bulbs, and screen settings that reduce blue light can support a more natural rhythm. Darkness is not only for mood. It is a biological instruction. Consistent wake times can stabilize your internal clocks. If you want one habit that quietly improves sleep, many clinicians point to a steady wake time. Your circadian system anchors itself using regular cues, and waking at wildly different times can blur those cues. A consistent morning start helps regulate when you feel sleepy at night, and it can reduce the temptation to stay in bed for long stretches that fragment sleep. Further, this matters because sleep is not only a nightly event. It is a 24-hour rhythm. When you wake at a similar time, your body learns when to raise alertness hormones, when to warm up, and when to prepare for rest. Even on weekends, keeping the wake time within a narrow range can prevent what people call social jet lag. If you had a rough night, the better fix is often an earlier bedtime, not a late morning. Consistency can feel boring. In biology, it is powerful. Some people carry rare gene variants linked to unusually long lives. In a few families, researchers find genetic changes that seem to tilt the odds toward living longer, and sometimes toward delaying specific diseases. One well-known example involves variants near genes that influence how the body moves fats through the bloodstream. Another involves pathways that affect how cells sense nutrients and respond to damage. These variants do not make anyone immortal. They appear to stack the deck in subtle ways, like keeping arteries healthier for longer or making inflammation less intense during illness. What makes this fascinating is how the science is used. When researchers identify a protective variant, they can ask what it does at the molecular level, then try to mimic the benefit with a drug. In that way, a long-lived family can become a map. Their DNA points toward biology that might help everyone. Aging is driven by many tiny changes, not one single clock. It helps to imagine aging as a choir rather than a soloist. Many processes change at once, and they influence each other. DNA damage can accumulate. Proteins can fold less reliably. Mitochondria can become less efficient. Cells can drift into states that disrupt nearby tissue. The immune system can shift in ways that make recovery slower. None of these changes alone fully explains growing older. Together, they create the familiar pattern of rising risk with time. This is why there is no single blood test that captures aging perfectly. It is also why different people age differently. One person's weak spot might be metabolism. Another might be joints or brain health. Longevity science is, in part, the art of finding which levers matter most for a given body. Your body repairs itself constantly, but repair slowly becomes imperfect. Every day, your cells fix thousands of small problems. DNA gets nicked by normal chemistry and is patched. Proteins get damaged and are broken down. Membranes are rebuilt. Even your bones are remodeled over time through a careful balance of removal and replacement. This quiet maintenance is one reason you can heal from cuts, bounce back from infections, and adapt to new demands. With age, the system is still working, yet it does not always keep pace. Repair can become slower. Quality control can slip. A little damage can linger longer than it used to, and small errors can compound. What is remarkable is that aging is not simply breakdown. It is a living negotiation between damage and repair. Longevity research looks closely at how to support the repair side of that equation without pushing growth in dangerous directions. Inflammation can smolder quietly for years and speed up aging. Inflammation is meant to be a short-term tool. It fights infection, clears debris, and signals for healing. The trouble begins when the signal never fully switches off. Low-grade inflammation can persist for years, and it can nudge the body toward disease in slow motion. Researchers sometimes call this inflammadew. It is linked with a higher risk of atherosclerosis, type 2 diabetes, frailty, and cognitive decline. The causes can be surprisingly ordinary. Poor sleep, chronic stress, excess visceral fat, and untreated gum disease can all keep immune signals elevated. Even repeated exposure to pollution can contribute. The effects are not dramatic day to day. That is what makes it dangerous. You can feel like nothing is happening until the cumulative burden shows up as stiffness, fatigue, or a diagnosis. Longevity medicine pays close attention to reducing needless inflammatory triggers where possible. Your blood vessels age too, and they influence every organ. Your arteries and tiny capillaries are not just plumbing. They are living tissue that responds to pressure, flow, and chemical signals. Over time, vessel walls can stiffen, and the delicate lining can become less responsive. When that happens, the heart has to work harder to push blood forward, and organs may receive less flexible delivery of oxygen and nutrients. The brain is especially sensitive because it depends on constant, well-regulated flow. The kidneys also rely on fine-tuned filtration, which is deeply connected to vascular health. This is why blood pressure matters so much for longevity. It is not only about avoiding one dramatic event. It is about preserving the everyday conditions that allow your tissues to repair and function. A lifespan is built from ordinary days. Healthy vessels help those days stay ordinary for longer. Muscle is a longevity organ, and it protects you in old age. Muscle is not just for lifting boxes or looking athletic. It is metabolically active tissue that helps regulate blood sugar, supports balance, and provides a reserve during illness. When you get sick or injured, the body often draws on protein stores to recover. More muscle can mean more resilience. It also lowers the risk of falls by improving strength and coordination, and falls can be life-changing later in life. There is another reason muscle matters. It acts like a sink for glucose after meals, which reduces stress on the pancreas. That benefit can ripple into lower risk for metabolic disease over time. The best part is that muscle remains trainable well into older age. Even modest strength training can improve function, confidence, and independence. Longevity is not only about adding years. It is about keeping your body capable inside those years. Sleep is a nightly reset that supports brain health and immunity. When you sleep, your brain does important housekeeping. Activity patterns shift, and the brain's cleaning systems move waste products away more efficiently than during waking. Memory also benefits. Sleep helps stabilize what you learned and what you experienced, which is part of why a well-slept mind feels clearer. Your immune system uses sleep as a tuning period too. Signals that guide immune cells change across the night, and poor sleep can leave the system less prepared. Over time, disrupted sleep is linked with higher risk for mood problems, metabolic issues, and cognitive decline. This does not mean one bad night is a disaster. It means that sleep is a long game. Regular timing, a dark room, and enough hours create a foundation that many other habits build on. In longevity research, sleep often looks like a simple habit. In reality, it is a powerful biological tool. Your microbiome can influence metabolism, inflammation, and even mood. Inside your gut lives a vast community of microbes that break down parts of food you cannot digest on your own. In the process, they produce molecules that can affect appetite, blood sugar control, and how your immune system reacts. Some microbial byproducts help support the gut barrier, which keeps unwanted compounds from leaking into circulation. Others can influence neurotransmitter pathways that shape mood and stress responses. What makes this field exciting is how responsive it is. Diet changes can shift microbial populations within days. Fiber-rich foods tend to nourish microbes that produce beneficial short-chain fatty acids. Highly processed diets can push the community toward less diversity. Antibiotics can reset the ecosystem in dramatic ways. Longevity science is still mapping cause and effect here, yet the message is already clear. You are not aging alone. You are aging with an entire inner ecology that responds to how you live. Some animals barely age, and scientists call this negligible senescence. In these species, the usual age-related slide is strangely muted. Death risk does not rise sharply year after year, and in some cases fertility stays steady deep into life. That does not mean they cannot die. They can be eaten, infected, or injured. It means their bodies do not show the same increasing fragility that most mammals do. Researchers study creatures like certain hydra and long-lived sea animals because they challenge the idea that aging is unavoidable in one particular shape. The big question is how they keep tissues working without runaway cancer or worn-out repair. Their cells may maintain cleaner proteins, steadier stem cell activity, or stronger defenses against damage. Each clue is like a lantern in the dark, showing possible routes toward longer health. The naked mole rat rarely gets cancer, despite living unusually long. This odd little mammal lives underground, yet it has become a celebrity in aging biology. It can thrive for decades, far longer than a mouse-sized animal should. Even more surprising, tumors appear to be rare. Researchers have found several layers of defense that may work together. Its cells seem to stop crowding sooner, which can prevent unchecked growth. Its tissues contain unusually resilient molecules that may support structure and signaling. It also tolerates low oxygen environments in ways that would harm many mammals, which hints at special metabolic tricks. The most fascinating part is the strategy, not the headline. It does not rely on one shield. It appears to stack protections, like multiple locks on a door. Studying those locks helps scientists imagine new ways to reduce cancer risk while also supporting healthy aging. Bowhead whales can live for more than 2 centuries. Imagine carrying your own history for longer than the lifespan of many nations. Bowhead whales swim through Arctic waters and they reach ages beyond 200 years. Evidence comes from careful age estimation, including findings like old hunting implements embedded in whales that were still alive decades later. To survive that long, their cells must manage damage for an extraordinary stretch of time. Researchers have examined bowhead genomes and found changes in genes related to DNA repair and cell cycle control. Their bodies also function in cold conditions that challenge circulation and metabolism. Yet they keep going, season after season, migration after migration. Longevity here is not a magical pause button. It is endurance at the cellular level, repeated without collapse for generations of human lifetimes. Each bowhead is a living reminder that long life is biologically possible. Greenland sharks may outlive many human lifetimes. These sharks move through deep, cold water with a pace that feels almost unreal. Some estimates suggest they can live for centuries, making them among the longest-lived vertebrates known. Part of the mystery is how scientists age an animal that grows slowly and lacks the usual hard structures used for age rings. Researchers have used radiocarbon dating of proteins in the eye lens, which forms early in life and remains stable. The results point to extreme longevity and a very late age of maturity. Cold temperatures and a slow metabolism may help, but that cannot be the whole story. Lots of cold water animals do not live that long. Something about their biology seems tuned for patience and preservation. Understanding how their tissues resist wear could teach us what it means to maintain stability over very long spans of time. Some turtles can keep reproducing at ages humans rarely reach. In many animals, fertility fades as the body ages, but some turtles break that familiar pattern. Certain species can continue reproducing late into life, and in some cases older, larger females may produce more offspring because they can carry more eggs. That flips a common expectation on its head. Instead of aging being a steady decline, some turtles show what biologists call negative senescence, where aspects of fitness can improve with age. The slow growth, protective shells, and steady metabolism may reduce the constant injury and stress that wear down other animals. Still, they are not invincible. Disease, habitat loss, and human impacts can cut lives short. The thrilling lesson is that nature has built bodies where aging and reproduction do not always trade places the way we assume. Turtles invite a bigger question. What if decline is not the only script? Certain jellyfish can revert to a younger stage, again and again. One small species has a life cycle twist that sounds like science fiction. Under stress, it can transform its adult form back into an earlier juvenile stage, then grow up again. This is not time travel. It is cellular reprogramming, a shift in how cells specialize and organize. In humans, cells are mostly committed to their roles. In this jellyfish, the boundary seems more flexible. Researchers study it to understand how mature tissues can unwind and rebuild without falling apart. The process is not a promise of eternal life in the wild. Predators, infections, and damage still end many lives. Yet the capability itself is astonishing. It shows that biological age is not always a one-way street. When we talk about rejuvenation in medicine, we are often imagining a future. This creature demonstrates a version of it already exists in nature. Birds often outlive similar-sized mammals, which puzzles researchers. A tiny songbird can survive far longer than you would predict from its size and fast heartbeat. That seems backward at first, because high metabolism is often linked with faster wear. Birds complicate that simple story. One idea is that flight shaped their biology. To power flight, birds evolved highly efficient mitochondria and strong antioxidant defenses, which might reduce certain kinds of cellular damage. Their immune systems and stress responses may also be tuned differently than those of mammals. Another clue is that many birds maintain sharp sensory and motor abilities for years, which may reduce accidents and improve survival. What makes this so captivating is the contrast. A mouse-sized mammal often lives a short, intense life. A bird of similar mass may keep singing and migrating for years longer. Comparing the two helps researchers see which parts of aging are universal and which are negotiable. Bats live surprisingly long for their size and metabolism. Some bats can live for decades, which is astonishing for such small mammals. They also host viruses that would make other animals very ill, yet they often tolerate infections with fewer symptoms. That combination has pushed bats into the spotlight of longevity research. One theory is that flight again plays a role. Flight demands intense energy bursts, so bats may have evolved strong DNA repair and cellular stress responses to handle that strain. Their immune systems may be calibrated to avoid overreacting, which can reduce damaging inflammation while still controlling threats. Many bats also hibernate or enter torpor, which changes metabolism in ways that could slow certain aging processes. The story here is not that bats have one magic gene. It is that they live at a biological intersection of high performance and long endurance. Understanding how they do that could illuminate safer ways to protect human tissues over time. Elephants have extra cancer defense genes compared with humans. Elephants have a problem that should be huge. They have many more cells than we do. And more cells should mean more chances for cancer. Yet elephants do not get cancer at the extreme rates that simple math would predict. Researchers have found that elephants carry multiple copies of a key tumor suppressor gene called TP53, along with other changes tied to DNA. Damage response. When elephant cells detect serious damage, they may be quicker to self-destruct rather than risk turning cancerous. It is a dramatic strategy, like sacrificing a compromised room to save the whole house. This helps explain a classic puzzle known as Peto's paradox, which asks why bigger animals are not drowning in cancer. Elephants suggest one answer. Evolution can add layers of protection when the stakes rise. For longevity science, that is exciting because it points to defenses that could be strengthened without fueling unchecked growth. Dogs age faster than humans, but not at a steady pace. A dog's early life races forward. Puppies develop rapidly, and many breeds reach adulthood within a couple of years. Later, the pace of aging changes, and it varies by size and breed. Small dogs often live longer than giant breeds, which hints that rapid growth and large body mass can come with trade-offs. Researchers have proposed that early accelerated aging may reflect intense developmental changes, while later aging tracks different biological tamma. Pressures like inflammation, heart strain, or cancer risk. This is why the old idea of 1 dog year equaling 7 human years does not hold up well. Aging is not a simple conversion. Dogs have become valuable in longevity research because they share our homes, our air, and often our habits. That shared environment makes them a bridge between lab studies and human life. Understanding their aging could help improve both veterinary care and human aging science. The gap between lifespan and health span can be widened or narrowed. Lifespan is how long you live. Health span is how long you live with good function and low burden of disease. Those two numbers can drift apart, and that drift is where suffering often hides. Modern medicine has helped many people survive heart attacks, strokes, and cancers. That is a triumph. Yet survival sometimes comes with years of disability if prevention and rehabilitation are missing. The hopeful news is that the gap is not fixed. Blood pressure control can protect the brain and kidneys. Strength and balance work can reduce falls. Good diabetes management can preserve nerves and vision. Social support can improve recovery and adherence to care. Even small changes, when sustained, can compress the period of serious illness toward the end of life. That idea is called compression of morbidity, and it is one of the most compassionate goals in aging science. It asks for a long life, and also a life that stays livable. Recovery from illness often depends on muscle reserves and resilience. When the body faces a serious infection or surgery, it enters a high-demand state. It needs energy, building blocks, and a stable internal environment to repair tissue and restore function. Muscle provides more than movement. It can act as a reserve of amino acids that the body draws on during stress. People with more reserve often tolerate illness better, and they may regain independence faster. This is one reason frailty is taken seriously in medicine. Frailty is not just thinness or age. It is reduced physiological buffer. The story becomes vivid in hospitals, where long bed rest can cause rapid deconditioning. Standing, walking, and rehabilitation are treated like medicine because they protect function. Nutrition matters too, especially adequate protein and calories during recovery. The takeaway is not fear. It is foresight. Building resilience while you are well makes it easier to return to yourself when life knocks you sideways. Blood pressure slowly rising with age can damage organs silently. Because it usually causes no pain, elevated pressure can work in the background like steady wear on a hinge. Over years, it can roughen the delicate inner lining of arteries, which makes it easier for harmful changes to take hold. Tiny vessels in the kidneys are especially vulnerable, and the brain's small vessels are also sensitive to constant strain. Many people discover the problem only after a routine check, which is why clinicians call it a silent risk. The hopeful part is how measurable and adjustable it can be. Home cuffs make trends visible. Lifestyle changes can move the needle. Medications can be remarkably effective when needed. One quiet advantage of early action is that it protects many systems at once. When pressure stays in a healthier range, the heart works less hard and organs get steadier, safer circulation. Atherosclerosis can begin early, long before symptoms appear. Plaque does not usually arrive as a sudden surprise. It often begins as subtle injury and inflammation inside artery walls, then slowly gathers cholesterol and immune cells over time. The process can start decades before anyone feels chest pain or shortness of breath. That long runway is what makes prevention so powerful. If your arteries are changing quietly in your 20s and 30s, then your 40s and 50s are not the beginning of the story. They are the middle. Risk is shaped by smoking, blood lipids, blood pressure, and blood sugar, along with sleep and chronic stress. Family history matters too, because some bodies handle cholesterol differently from the start. The fascinating twist is that plaque can be stable or unstable. The dangerous moments often come when a vulnerable plaque ruptures and triggers a clot. Longevity medicine focuses on keeping arteries calmer and more resilient long before crisis arrives. Arteries can stiffen over time, raising the heart's workload. When arteries are elastic, they cushion each heartbeat. They expand as blood surges forward, then recoil to keep flow smooth between beats. With age, that springiness can fade, and the vessel walls become less flexible. The result is often a higher pulse pressure, which means the heart is pushing against a tougher system. This can ripple outward in surprising ways. The heart muscle may thicken. The brain may see more pulsatile stress in its smallest vessels. Even the kidneys can be affected because they filter blood through fragile networks. What makes arterial stiffness so intriguing is that it reflects cumulative life exposure, from diet and activity to inflammation and blood sugar. It is not only a number on a cuff. It is a property of tissue. Regular movement, blood pressure control, and avoiding smoking can help slow stiffening. The earlier you support elasticity, the longer your circulation can stay smooth. The brain depends on healthy blood flow minute by minute. Your brain is only a small fraction of your body weight, yet it consumes a huge share of your energy and oxygen. It cannot store much fuel, so it relies on constant delivery through a finely regulated network of vessels. When that delivery falters, thinking can feel foggier, and with long-term strain, the risk of cognitive decline can rise. The brain also protects itself with a barrier that screens what enters from the bloodstream. Vascular problems can weaken that barrier over time, which may expose brain tissue to inflammatory signals it was not meant to face. What is captivating here is how everyday choices can support this system. Managing blood pressure, staying active, and protecting sleep all help circulation and vessel health. Hearing and vision care matter too because they reduce stress and improve engagement. A brain is not aging alone in the skull. It is aging through the health of its blood supply moment after moment. Hearing loss is linked to cognitive decline through multiple pathways. When hearing fades, the brain often has to work harder to decode speech, especially in noisy rooms. That extra effort can leave fewer resources for memory and attention in the moment. Over years, reduced hearing can also change social life. People may withdraw from conversations because the strain is tiring or embarrassing. Less social engagement can mean less cognitive stimulation, which may increase vulnerability to decline. There is also a biological angle. Hearing loss can reflect broader vascular or inflammatory changes that affect both the ear and the brain. The story is not that hearing loss causes dementia in a simple straight line. It is that hearing can be a gateway to brain health. The exciting part is that this is actionable. Hearing aids and better sound environments can restore access to conversation. When someone hears more clearly, they often reconnect with people, music, and daily cues. That reconnection is not just pleasant. It can protect cognitive life. Vision changes can increase falls, isolation, and mental strain. Sight guides your feet more than you notice. It judges curb height, detects uneven pavement, and helps your brain map a safe path through cluttered rooms. When vision declines, the world becomes less predictable, and that unpredictability can raise fall risk. It could also shrink a person's radius. People may avoid driving at night, walking alone, or visiting friends, which can quietly increase isolation. The mental load rises too. Straining to read labels, recognize faces, or track steps can be exhausting, and fatigue can worsen balance and mood. The uplifting news is that many vision problems are treatable or manageable. Updated prescriptions, cataract surgery, and better lighting can make a dramatic difference. Contrast strips on stairs and tidy pathways can reduce accidents. For longevity, vision care is not cosmetic. It is protective. It keeps people moving, social, and confident in daily life, which supports both body and mind over time. Kidney function can decline quietly, changing drug effects with age. Your kidneys filter blood continuously, balancing fluids, salts, and waste products with astonishing precision. Because they have so much reserve capacity, early decline often causes no symptoms. That is why routine labs can matter. Even mild reduction in filtration can change how medications behave, since many drugs and their byproducts leave the body through the kidneys. A dose that was safe at 40 can become too strong at 70, especially when dehydration or illness temporarily reduces kidney performance. Some common pain relievers can also stress the kidneys, particularly when used frequently or combined with certain conditions. What makes this topic feel almost detective-like is the way it shows up. Someone may feel dizzy, confused, or unusually tired, and the cause can be medication buildup rather than a new disease. Longevity care often includes regular review of prescriptions, hydration awareness, and attention to blood pressure and diabetes control. Protecting kidney function protects the body's internal chemistry, and it helps medicines remain helpful rather than harmful. Liver metabolism changes with age, altering how medicines act. The liver is a master chemist. It modifies drugs, hormones, and toxins so they can be used, stored, or safely removed. With age, liver blood flow can decrease and enzyme activity can change. That means the same medication can linger longer or reach higher levels even when the dose has not changed. The effect becomes especially important with sedatives, sleep aids, and certain pain medications because slowed clearance can increase falls and confusion. Alcohol can add another layer, since it competes for metabolic pathways and can amplify drug effects. What is compelling is how preventable some problems are. A careful medication review can identify high-risk combinations, and doses can be adjusted thoughtfully. Clinicians often use the principle of starting low and increasing slowly in older adults. The goal is not to deny treatment. It is to match treatment to an evolving body. In longevity planning, the liver is a reminder that aging changes not only disease risk, but the rules of pharmacology too. Falls are a major turning point for independence in later life. A fall can seem like a single bad moment, but it can start a chain reaction. Fear of falling often leads people to move less, and less movement weakens muscles and balance. That weakness then raises fall risk again, creating a loop that can shrink a person's world. Injuries can be serious, especially fractures or head trauma, and recovery may involve long periods of reduced activity. Yet falls are not an unavoidable fate. Many causes are practical. Poor lighting, loose rugs, slippery bathrooms, and the wrong shoes can turn a home into an obstacle course. Medications that cause dizziness can be adjusted. Vision and hearing support can improve spatial awareness. Strength and balance training can make reactions faster when a stumble begins. Even simple changes like grab bars and handrails can protect confidence. The most inspiring part is that preventing falls is not only safety, it is freedom. When people feel steady, they keep walking, socializing, and living life on their own terms. Sarcopenia is age-related muscle loss, but it is not inevitable. What many people call getting old is often a specific biological shift where muscle tissue gradually shrinks and weakens. It can begin earlier than most expect, especially with long stretches of inactivity, low protein intake, or repeated illness. The startling part is how much it can be changed. Muscles respond to challenge by rebuilding, even later in life, because the body still knows how to adapt when it gets a clear signal to do so. That signal can be simple. Standing up from a chair repeatedly, carrying groceries with intention, climbing stairs, or using resistance bands can all count when they are progressed over time. The goal is not to chase soreness. It is to ask the muscles to stay useful. When muscle is protected, people often keep their pace, their balance, and their confidence. That is how independence stays intact. Bone remodeling slows with age, raising fracture risk. Your skeleton is not a fixed frame. It is a living structure that is constantly renewed. Cells called osteoclasts break down old bone, and osteoblasts build new bone in its place. In youth, that exchange is brisk and balanced. With age, rebuilding often lags behind breakdown, and bones can become more porous and fragile. What makes this so important is that fractures can change everything, not only through pain, but through long recovery and loss of mobility. The hopeful twist is that bones listen to force. Weight-bearing movement, resistance training, and impact that is safe and appropriate can tell bone tissue to stay dense. Nutrition matters too, because building needs raw materials. Calcium, protein, and adequate overall energy support the process. Longevity is not only about the heart and brain. It is also about the quiet strength of the structure that carries you. Protein needs may rise with age to protect muscle. As people age, the body can become less responsive to the muscle-building signal from protein. That means the same meal that supported muscle repair at 30 might do less at 70. Researchers call this anabolic resistance. It helps explain why some older adults lose strength even when they are eating what once felt adequate. The practical takeaway is not to obsess over numbers. It is to make protein a regular feature of meals, especially breakfast and lunch, not only dinner. Quality matters too. Foods rich in the amino acid leucine, such as dairy, eggs, soy, fish, and legumes, can be particularly effective at triggering muscle repair. Pairing protein with resistance training amplifies the effect, because exercise primes the muscle to use those building blocks. Protein also supports immune function and wound healing, which becomes more important with age. In longevity planning, food becomes more than calories. It becomes construction material. Vitamin D affects bone, muscle function, and immune signaling. Vitamin D is sometimes treated like a simple bone nutrient, but it behaves more like a hormone. It helps the body absorb calcium and regulate bone turnover, which is why low levels are linked to weaker bones. It also influences muscle function, and low vitamin D is associated with greater risk of falls in some studies. Then there is the immune system. Vitamin D receptors appear on many immune cells, and the vitamin helps shape how those cells respond to threats and inflammation. The tricky part is that the main natural source is sunlight on skin, and many people get less sun exposure with modern indoor life or heavy sun protection. Food sources exist, but they are limited. That is why clinicians often check vitamin D levels in people at risk. Supplements can help when deficiency is present, but more is not always better. The fascinating lesson is how one molecule can touch multiple systems that matter for aging. Creatine can support strength and function in some older adults. Creatine is famous in sports culture, but its biology is deeply relevant to aging. It helps recycle energy in cells, especially during short bursts of effort. That includes standing up quickly, climbing stairs, or catching your balance. In older adults, studies often find that creatine paired with resistance training can improve strength and lean mass more than training alone. It is not a miracle powder. It works best as part of a broader plan that includes protein, progressive exercise, and enough sleep to recover. Creatine is also being studied for potential brain benefits because brain cells use the same energy systems. Safety is generally good for healthy people at typical doses, but it is not for everyone. People with kidney disease should get medical guidance first. What makes creatine interesting is its simplicity. It supports a basic energy buffer that many daily actions rely on. In longevity, small boosts to function can have outsized effect on independence. The immune system shifts with age, a process called immunosenescence. Over time, your immune system can become less agile. Some defenses respond more slowly to brand new germs, while other parts stay switched on a little too often. That combination can feel unfair. You can be more vulnerable to infections and also more prone to chronic inflammatory signals that wear tissues down. One reason is that the thymus, an organ that helps train certain immune cells, tends to shrink with age. Meanwhile, immune cells that have fought many battles can accumulate, and they may crowd out fresh recruits. The result is not a broken immune system. It is a remodeled one, with different strengths and weaknesses than it had in youth. Longevity researchers care about this shift because it influences everything from wound healing to vaccine response. Supporting sleep, nutrition, and regular movement can help keep immune signaling steadier, and that steadiness matters across decades. Vaccines can be less effective in older adults, but still valuable. As the immune system changes with age, it can take a larger push to build strong protection. That is why some vaccines are offered in higher dose or adjuvanted forms for older adults. It is not because vaccines stop working. It is because the immune system may need a clearer rehearsal to remember the threat. Even partial protection can be life-changing. It can reduce the chance of severe illness, hospitalization, and the long recovery that can steal strength and independence. Vaccination also has a community effect. When more people around you are protected, germs have fewer easy paths to reach you. Longevity is often won in ordinary preventive choices, and vaccination is one of the most powerful. It is a quiet technology that trains your defenses before the real battle arrives. For older bodies, that head start can mean the difference between a setback and a quick return to normal life. Loneliness is linked with higher risk for illness and early death. Loneliness is not the same as being alone. It is the feeling that support is missing, even in a crowd. That feeling can change the body. Stress hormones can rise. Sleep can suffer. Immune function can shift in ways that increase inflammation and reduce resilience. Over years, these changes are associated with higher risk for cardiovascular disease and other chronic conditions. The danger is that loneliness can also change behavior. People may move less, eat less well, or skip appointments, because everything feels harder without encouragement. What makes this both heartbreaking and hopeful is that it is modifiable. A regular phone call, a weekly group, a volunteer role, or a shared hobby can rebuild connection in small, reliable steps. Longevity is often framed as biology, but it is also belonging. The body seems to interpret social support as a signal of safety, and safety is when repair and recovery can happen best. Depression can worsen physical disease, and physical disease can worsen mood. This relationship can become a loop that is hard to see from the inside. Depression can reduce energy, motivation, and sleep quality, which makes it harder to exercise, cook nourishing food, or keep medical appointments. That can worsen conditions like diabetes or heart disease, which then increase fatigue and worry, feeding the depression again. There are also biological links. Depression is associated with changes in stress hormones and inflammation, which can influence the body's ability to heal and regulate itself. The crucial point is that mood is not a side issue. It is part of the body's operating system. Treating depression can improve quality of life, and it can also improve adherence to medical care and recovery from illness. Treatment can include therapy, medication, social support, light exposure, and structured movement, often in combination. In longevity, mental health care is not an optional add-on. It is a core strategy for protecting the whole person. The brain stays plastic, and it can rewire in older age. For a long time, people assumed the adult brain was mostly fixed. We now know it keeps adapting. Neurons can strengthen or weaken their connections based on what you practice and what you pay attention to. Even in later life, the brain can recruit new pathways to compensate after injury, and it can improve skills with training. That plasticity shows up in everyday ways. Someone learns to use a new device, picks up a new route through a city, or improves balance through repeated practice. The brain changes because it is used, not because it is young. What changes with age is often speed, not possibility. Learning may take more repetitions, yet the rewiring can still happen. This is thrilling for longevity because it means decline is not the only direction. The brain is a living system that responds to challenge, novelty, and connection. Keeping it engaged is not only enjoyable, it is biological maintenance. Dementia risk is influenced by hearing, sleep, exercise, and blood pressure. Dementia is not a single switch that flips on. It is the end result of many influences that build over time, including vascular health, metabolic stability, brain resilience, and sensory input. That is why risk is shaped by factors that seem unrelated at first glance. Hearing matters because it affects communication and cognitive load. Sleep matters because the brain uses rest for maintenance and memory processing. Exercise matters because it supports circulation and metabolic regulation that the brain depends on. Blood pressure matters because tiny vessels feed brain tissue every moment. What makes this hopeful is that these factors are not rare, technical interventions. They are parts of ordinary life that can be improved step by step. Risk reduction is not a guarantee, but it is a real lever. The most captivating idea in modern brain health is that protecting cognition often looks like protecting the whole body. The brain is not separate. It is carried by the systems that keep you alive. The timing of food can influence blood sugar and hormones. Your metabolism follows a daily rhythm, and many people process glucose more efficiently earlier in the day than late at night. When large meals are pushed into the evening, blood sugar and insulin can stay elevated longer, and that can affect energy, sleep quality, and hunger signals the AI. Next day. Hormones that regulate appetite also move in cycles. Leptin and ghrelin respond to both sleep and eating patterns, which is one reason late nights can make cravings feel louder. The fascinating part is that timing does not replace food quality, but it can amplify it. A balanced breakfast can set a steadier tone for the day. A lighter dinner can reduce nighttime reflux and improve sleep comfort. None of this needs to be extreme. It is more like aligning your meals with your body's natural daytime readiness. Longevity is often about reducing chronic strain. Meal timing can be one subtle way to do that. The liver runs on a daily rhythm, coordinating repair and detox. Your liver does not do the same job at the same intensity all day. It follows circadian signals that guide when it stores energy, when it releases it, and when it prioritizes certain kinds of molecular cleanup. This matters because the liver is central to cholesterol management, hormone processing, and drug metabolism. When sleep timing is irregular, or when eating happens far into the night, the liver can be asked to do conflicting tasks at once. It might be trying to manage incoming nutrients while also running overnight maintenance programs. Over time, that mismatch may contribute to fat buildup in the liver and to broader metabolic stress. The captivating thing is how practical the insight is. Regular sleep, fewer late-night calories, and predictable meal patterns can support the liver's rhythm without anyone needing a special supplement. In the world of longevity, people often chase fancy detox ideas. Your liver already has a plan. It works best when the day has a clear shape. Your gut microbes follow daily cycles, shaped by meal timing. The microbiome is not static. Many gut microbes rise and fall in predictable waves across the day, responding to when food arrives and when the gut is at rest. When meals happen on a regular schedule, those microbial rhythms can stay organized. When eating is scattered late into the night, the microbial community can shift in ways that may reduce diversity and change the mix of byproducts produced. Those byproducts matter because they interact with the gut lining and immune signaling. Some help strengthen the gut barrier, while others may promote inflammation if the ecosystem is imbalanced. What makes this area feel like a hidden frontier is that it connects daily routine to microscopic life. Your meal timing is not only feeding you, it is also feeding a community that influences how you process nutrients. In longevity science, this suggests a simple lever. Giving the gut a nightly break and keeping eating windows more consistent may help maintain a healthier internal ecology. Shift work is linked to higher risk for multiple diseases. When work requires nights and rotating schedules, the body can be forced into a permanent state of circadian confusion. You might be awake when your biology expects sleep, and trying to sleep when the world is loud and bright. That mismatch affects more than tiredness. Studies have linked shift work with higher risk of metabolic disease, cardiovascular problems, and mood disturbances. Part of the reason is behavioral. It is harder to eat well, move regularly, and maintain social connection when your schedule is upside down. Part of the reason is biological. Hormones that regulate glucose, appetite, and inflammation can become dysregulated when the internal clock is constantly resetting. Many shift workers do everything right and still struggle, which shows how powerful circadian timing is. The most helpful strategies often focus on damage control. Strong light during the work shift, darkness during sleep, consistent sleep blocks on work days, and careful caffeine timing can reduce the strain. It is not easy, but it is not hopeless. Morning light can help anchor circadian rhythm and improve sleep. Natural light soon after waking is one of the strongest signals your brain receives about what time it is. It helps set the daily clock that influences alertness, appetite, and the rise of sleep pressure later at night. This is why people often sleep better after spending time outdoors during the day, especially in the morning. Morning light can also support mood, in part by shaping neurotransmitter systems that respond to daylight. You do not need to stare at the sun. You simply need bright light reaching the eyes, ideally outside where the intensity is far higher than indoor lighting. Even a cloudy morning can be surprisingly bright compared with a living room. If you live in a dim environment, a bright light therapy box can be useful for some people under medical guidance. The practical beauty is that this habit is free and immediate. A short morning walk can be both exercise and circadian medicine. Maps can help, But late naps can steal night sleep. A nap can be a lifesaver when sleep debt builds up, especially after a poor night or during illness. Short naps can improve alertness, reaction time, and mood without leaving you groggy. The trouble begins when naps run long or drift too late into the afternoon. Sleep works partly through a buildup of pressure, like sand filling an hourglass. A late nap can empty the hourglass too much, and bedtime arrives with less sleepiness than you expected. Then the night becomes lighter and more fragmented, which can lead to more napping the next day. A simple rule helps many people. Keep naps earlier, and keep them brief, often around 20 minutes. If you need deeper recovery, a longer nap can work best when it is scheduled and not taken close to bedtime. Naps are not bad. They are tools, and tools work best when timing is thoughtful. Telomeres shorten with cell division, but their story is complex. At the ends of your chromosomes sit protective caps that act a little like the plastic tips on shoelaces. Each time a cell divides, those caps tend to shorten, and that has made them famous as a symbol of aging. But biology refuses to stay simple. Some cells maintain telomeres more actively, especially certain stem cells and immune cells that must keep renewing. Stress, smoking, and chronic inflammation are associated with shorter telomeres, but the direction of cause can run both ways. Shorter telomeres can limit a cell's ability to divide safely, yet overly active maintenance could raise cancer risk by letting damaged cells keep multiplying. That trade-off is why telomeres are not a straightforward countdown timer. They are part of a larger safety system. Longevity research treats them like a clue about cellular wear, not a single verdict about your future. Epigenetic clocks can estimate biological age from chemical marks on DNA. Your DNA sequence is mostly fixed, but the chemical tags that sit on DNA can change with life. These tags help control which genes are active, and they shift with development, environment, and aging. Epigenetic clocks use patterns of these marks to estimate a kind of biological age, which sometimes differs from the number of birthdays you have had. What makes this feel almost magical is how it can capture the imprint of lifestyle and disease risk in a single measure. People with healthier habits often show younger clock readings on average, while chronic illness can be linked with older readings. Researchers are exploring whether these clocks can track the impact of interventions, like exercise programs or changes in sleep. The most exciting part is the possibility of fast feedback. Instead of waiting decades to see who lives longer, scientists may be able to watch aging signals shift in months, then learn what truly moves the needle. Biological age can differ from calendar age by many years. Two people can be the same age on paper, yet their bodies can tell very different stories. One might have flexible arteries, strong muscles, and stable blood sugar. Another might carry silent inflammation, high visceral fat, and fragile balance. That gap is what people mean when they say someone seems young for their age, or older than expected. Researchers try to quantify it using biomarkers, fitness measures, and sometimes epigenetic patterns. The fascination here is that it reframes aging as a process with speed controls. It is not only time passing, it is how the body is responding to time. Sleep, stress, activity, and chronic disease management can shift the trajectory, sometimes more than people imagine. This idea can be motivating, but it should also be compassionate. A person's biological age reflects opportunities and burdens, not just willpower. Still, the takeaway is hopeful. There is often room to nudge the body toward a healthier pace. Senescent cells stop dividing, but can harm neighbors with signals. Some cells reach a point where they permanently stop dividing. That can be protective, because it prevents damaged cells from turning cancerous. The problem is what these cells do next. Many senescent cells remain metabolically active and release a cocktail of signals that can irritate surrounding tissue. Those signals can promote inflammation, disrupt normal repair, and even encourage nearby cells to enter the same worn-out state. Over time, senescent cells can accumulate, especially after injuries, infections, or chronic metabolic strain. Imagine a neighborhood where a few houses stop being maintained, then start leaking smoke into the street. The whole block feels worse. Researchers are studying where these cells build up, how the immune system clears them in youth, and why clearance becomes less efficient with age. This is one of the most gripping ideas in longevity science because it suggests aging is not only about loss. It is also about certain cells actively changing the environment in ways that speed decline. Some drugs aim to clear senescent cells and are called senolytics. If senescent cells are troublemakers that linger, then one bold strategy is to remove them. Senolytics are compounds being studied for their ability to selectively kill or reduce these cells, which may lower inflammatory signaling and improve tissue function in animal studies. The promise is dramatic. Improve function without needing to rebuild every damaged structure from scratch. The caution is equally dramatic. Senescent cells are not purely bad. They can help with wound healing and can suppress tumors, so removing them at the wrong time could create new risks. Researchers are working on timing, dosing, and identifying who might benefit most. Some early human studies are exploring safety and effects on specific conditions, but this field is still young. What makes it captivating is the shift in mindset. Instead of treating one disease at a time, senolytics aim at a cellular process that touches many age-related problems. It is like changing the background weather, not only patching each roof after a storm. Mitochondria make energy, and their decline is tied to aging. Every heartbeat, every thought, and every step depends on the energy made inside mitochondria. These tiny structures are not static batteries. They are dynamic networks that split, merge, and respond to demand. With age, mitochondrial function can decline, and cells may produce energy less efficiently. That can show up as lower endurance, slower recovery, and increased vulnerability during illness. Mitochondria also communicate with the rest of the cell, and they can influence inflammation and cell survival decisions. That means their decline is not only about feeling tired, it can shape the whole cellular environment. Longevity researchers look at why mitochondrial DNA becomes more error-prone, why quality control becomes less strict, and how stress can damage membranes and proteins. The hopeful side is that mitochondria respond to signals. Exercise, temperature stress like saunas or cold exposure for some people, and even sleep quality can influence mitochondrial biogenesis and cleanup. Supporting them is like supporting the power grid of the body. Oxidative stress is real, but antioxidants are not a simple fix. Cells produce reactive molecules as part of normal metabolism, especially inside mitochondria. These molecules can damage proteins, lipids, and DNA if they accumulate. That is oxidative stress, and it is a real part of aging biology. But the popular solution, taking lots of antioxidant supplements, has not delivered the straightforward results people hoped for. One reason is that reactive molecules are not only villains, they also act as signals that trigger beneficial adaptations, including the body's own antioxidant defenses. If you blunt those signals too much, you might reduce the benefits of exercise and other stressors that build resilience. Another reason is that antioxidants behave differently in different tissues and doses, and some can become harmful at high levels. The fascinating picture is balance. Your body already has antioxidant systems, and many are supported by healthy habits like regular activity, good sleep, and diets rich in colorful plants. Longevity science increasingly focuses on strengthening the body's own regulation rather than trying to mop up every reactive molecule from the outside. Autophagy is cellular cleanup, and it helps recycle damaged parts. Inside cells, damaged proteins and worn-out components do not simply vanish. They must be broken down and recycled, or they start cluttering the system. Autophagy is one of the major cleanup pathways. It packages cellular junk into tiny sacs, then sends those sacs to be dismantled and reused. This process matters for brain cells, muscle cells, and immune cells because many of these cells must last a long time. When autophagy slows with age, debris can accumulate and cells may function less smoothly. What makes autophagy so compelling is that it responds to lifestyle signals. Exercise tends to stimulate it. Periods without food can increase it in some tissues. Sleep may also support normal turnover and repair rhythms. Scientists are exploring drugs that modulate autophagy, but the biology is delicate. Too much breakdown could be harmful. Too little leads to build up. The dream in longevity research is targeted cleanup that restores function without causing collateral damage. It is like improving waste collection in a city so every neighborhood runs better. Protein quality control can falter with age, causing cellular clutter. Proteins are the working tools of cells, and they must be folded into precise shapes to function. Heat, oxidation, and random chemical bumps can warp proteins, and cells use a network of chaperones and disposal systems to keep the protein D population healthy. With age, that quality control can become less efficient. Misfolded proteins can accumulate, stick together, and interfere with normal activity. This idea connects to several neurodegenerative diseases where protein aggregates are part of the pathology. But the story is broader than the brain. Muscles, liver, and immune cells also rely on clean protein turnover to respond to stress. What makes this so interesting is that it links aging to everyday maintenance, not a single dramatic breakdown. Researchers are studying how stress responses weaken over time and how autophagy and proteasome systems change. They also ask a daring question. Could improving protein quality control slow multiple age-related declines at once? If cells keep their tools in better shape, the whole organism may stay more functional. Stem cell function can decline, slowing repair across tissues. Stem cells are the body's repair reservoir. They replace worn-out blood cells, help renew skin, and support regeneration in tissues that constantly face damage. With age, stem cells can lose some of their ability to divide, specialize, and respond to injury. They may become exhausted by chronic inflammation, exposed to accumulated DNA damage, or trapped in signals that keep them inactive when they are needed. The consequences can feel familiar. Slower wound healing, weaker immune renewal, reduced recovery after illness. What makes this area so exciting is that it suggests aging is partly a problem of maintenance capacity. If you can preserve the repair crew, you may preserve the building. Scientists are exploring how the stem cell niche, the local environment around stem cells, changes with age. They also study interventions that might restore healthier signaling without increasing cancer risk. The goal is not endless growth. It is controlled renewal, so tissues can stay responsive when life demands repair. Cancer risk rises with age, partly because mutations accumulate. Every day, your cells copy DNA, and every copy is a chance for a tiny typo. Most errors are corrected, and many damaged cells are removed. Over decades, though, a few mutations can slip through and remain. Add in exposures like sunlight, smoke, and certain chemicals, and the odds rise that one cell will collect a dangerous combination. This is why cancer is often described as a disease of time. It is not that the body suddenly becomes careless. It is that the ledger of changes grows longer. The immune system also plays a role, because it can spot and destroy abnormal cells, and that surveillance can become less efficient with age. What makes this story fascinating is the prevention angle. Lowering exposure, keeping inflammation in check, and maintaining metabolic health can reduce the conditions that help mutated cells thrive. Aging increases risk, but the environment inside the body still matters. Not all tumors grow fast, and some never become dangerous. The word cancer can sound like a single monster, But tumors behave very differently. Some grow quickly and spread early. Others are so slow that a person could live a full life and never be harmed by them. Modern medicine has learned this the hard way, through screening programs that detect tiny abnormalities that might never progress. That is why doctors sometimes recommend active surveillance for certain early tumors, with careful monitoring instead of immediate aggressive treatment. It can feel counterintuitive, yet it is often the way of protecting quality of life while staying safe. This is also why cancer statistics can be confusing. More detection does not always mean more deadly disease. The most gripping takeaway is that biology has tempo. Tumors can have different growth speeds, different genetic drivers, and different interactions with the immune system. Longevity care increasingly focuses on matching treatment intensity to true risk, so people are not overtreated and not undertreated either. Screening can save lives, but timing and context matter. Screening works best when it finds a disease early enough to change the outcome. That is the magic moment. Too early, and you may detect changes that never become harmful. Too late, and the window may have passed. Different cancers have different windows, which is why screening guidelines vary by age, risk factors, and family history. For some tests, false positives can lead to anxiety and procedures that carry their own risks. For others, false negatives can create false reassurance. That is why the decision is often about trade-offs, not perfection. The most empowering approach is personalized screening. A person with strong family history may benefit from earlier or more frequent checks. Another person with lower risk might choose a different schedule. Longevity is not only about adding interventions. It is about choosing the right intervention at the right time, so the benefits outweigh the burdens. In that way, screening becomes a form of strategy, not a reflex. Heart disease remains a leading cause of death worldwide. The heart works without rest, and it depends on open, flexible arteries to deliver oxygen to its own muscle. When those arteries narrow or spasm, the heart can become starved during moments when demand rises. Heart disease also includes problems with rhythm, valves, and heart muscle strength. Yet coronary artery disease is a major player because it builds quiet for years. What makes heart disease so central to longevity is that it is both common and modifiable. Blood pressure, LDL cholesterol, smoking, diabetes, and inactivity can all push risk upward. At the same time, small changes can create a large shift over time. Regular movement strengthens the cardiovascular system. Managing lipids can stabilize plaques. Treating high blood pressure protects the heart from constant strain. The compelling part is how early the story begins. A healthy heart in older age is often the product of habits and medical care that started long before retirement. Longevity science keeps returning to the heart because it sits at the center of circulation, energy, and resilience. Stroke risk is strongly tied to blood pressure control. A stroke can happen in two main ways. A clot can block blood flow to part of the brain, or a weakened vessel can rupture and bleed. High blood pressure raises risk for both. It damages vessel walls over time, it promotes atherosclerotic buildup, and it can create fragile spots in small brain vessels. The frightening thing is that many people feel fine while pressure is slowly climbing. Then, a stroke arrives without warning. The hopeful thing is that blood pressure is one of the most treatable risk factors in all of medicine. It responds to salt intake, alcohol, sleep, weight changes, stress management, and exercise. It also responds to medication, often with clear benefit. Stroke prevention is not only about avoiding catastrophe. It is about protecting the brain's ability to think, speak, move, and remember. Each small reduction in pressure can translate into lower long-term risk. In longevity terms, blood pressure control is one of the most practical ways to protect your future self. Type 2 diabetes accelerates aging in blood vessels and nerves. When blood sugar stays elevated, it can harm tissues in slow, persistent ways. Glucose can bind to proteins and change their structure, which affects blood vessels and connective tissue. High sugar also promotes inflammation and oxidative stress that can damage the delicate lining of arteries. Over time, this can speed up atherosclerosis and raise risk for heart attack and stroke. Nerves are also vulnerable. Damage to small blood vessels that feed nerves can lead to numbness and pain, often starting in the feet. This can affect balance and raise full risk. Eyes and kidneys are also sensitive to long-term sugar exposure. What is inspiring is that type 2 diabetes is not only a diagnosis, it is a condition with many levers. Weight loss, increased activity, better sleep, and medications can improve blood sugar control and reduce complications. Even partial improvement can matter. In longevity science, diabetes is a reminder that metabolic health affects nearly every system, and that stabilizing fuel can protect the body's long-term wiring and plumbing. Fat stored around organs is riskier than fat stored under skin. Not all body fat behaves the same. Subcutaneous fat under the skin can act as a relatively safe storage depot. Visceral fat around organs is more metabolically active, and it tends to release inflammatory signals and free fatty acids into circulation. That can worsen insulin resistance and raise triglycerides, creating a pattern associated with higher cardiovascular risk. Visceral fat is also linked to fatty liver disease, which can disrupt metabolism further. What makes this so interesting is that scale weight alone cannot tell the whole story. Two people can weigh the same, yet one carries more visceral fat and has higher risk. Waist circumference can be a useful clue because it reflects abdominal fat distribution. The encouraging news is that visceral fat often responds well to lifestyle changes. Regular aerobic activity and strength training can reduce it. Diet changes that lower ultra-processed intake and added sugars can help. In longevity, where fat is stored can be as important as how much is stored. Alcohol can raise cancer risk, even at lower levels. Alcohol is woven into many cultures, so it is easy to assume modest drinking is harmless. Yet ethanol is metabolized into acetaldehyde, a compound that can damage DNA and proteins. Alcohol can also increase estrogen levels, which is relevant for certain hormone-sensitive cancers. It may act as a solvent that helps other carcinogens penetrate tissues, and it can irritate the lining of the mouth and throat. Risk depends on dose, pattern, and individual susceptibility, but studies consistently find that cancer risk can rise even at lower consumption levels. What makes this important for longevity is that it is a choice with trade-offs. Alcohol can also affect sleep architecture, raise blood pressure, and add empty calories that worsen metabolic health. The empowering part is clarity. If someone reduces drinking, risk can move in a safer direction over time. Longevity is not about fear. It is about understanding which habits carry hidden costs. Smoking damages nearly every organ, and quitting still helps at any age. Smoke contains thousands of chemicals, including many that directly damage DNA. That damage can lead to cancer, but smoking also harms blood vessels, raises clot risk, and accelerates atherosclerosis. It injures lung tissue and reduces oxygen delivery, which affects the entire body. It also increases inflammation and weakens immune defenses, making infections more dangerous. What is remarkable is how much the body can recover after quitting. Circulation begins to improve within weeks. Lung function can stabilize. Risk for heart disease drops substantially over time, and cancer risk declines too, though it may not return fully to baseline. Quitting is often difficult because nicotine rewires reward pathways, yet modern tools can help. Counseling, nicotine replacement, and medications improve success rates, especially when combined. The key message for longevity is hopeful. It is never too late for quitting to matter. Each smoke-free day reduces ongoing injury, and the benefits compound quietly. Air pollution is linked to higher risk for heart and lung disease. Air pollution is easy to ignore because you cannot always see it, yet your lungs and blood vessels feel it. Fine particles can penetrate deep into the lungs, triggering inflammation that can spill into circulation. That systemic inflammation can worsen atherosclerosis and increase the risk of heart attack and stroke. Pollution is also linked to asthma and chronic lung disease, and it can make infections more severe. What makes this feel like a modern paradox is that it is both personal and collective. An individual can reduce exposure with air filters, well-fitting masks during high pollution days, and avoiding heavy traffic during exercise. Yet the biggest gains come from cleaner energy and better regulation. Longevity research pays attention to air quality because it affects millions at once. It is not a niche risk. It is an everyday exposure that nudges the body's inflammatory baseline. Cleaner air is a public health intervention that adds healthy years quietly, without anyone needing to remember a daily habit. Lifelong physical work can protect function, but injuries can accumulate. A lifetime of physical work often builds real strengths. People who farmed, built, carried, and climbed may reach older age with strong muscles, durable bones, and practical movement skills that office life rarely demands. That kind of functional fitness can be a powerful shield against frailty. At the same time, the body keeps receipts. Repetitive strain, heavy loads, and untreated injuries can accumulate into chronic pain, joint degeneration, and reduced mobility. The longevity lesson is not that hard. Labor is automatically healthy. It is that meaningful physical effort can be protective when it is balanced with recovery, good nutrition, and injury prevention. Technique matters. Footwear matters. Rest matters. Modern ergonomics exists for a reason. There is also a social difference. Physical work often comes with community, identity, and daily structure, which can support mental health. The most compelling takeaway is balance. Use the body, but also care for it. Longevity is helped by work that strengthens you, and it is harmed by work that breaks you faster than you can heal. Modern medicine has increased lifespan, mostly by reducing early deaths. If you look back across recent centuries, one of the biggest reasons average lifespan rose is that fewer people died in childhood. Improvements in childbirth safety, infection control, and emergency care changed the odds early in life. Antibiotics turned once deadly infections into treatable events. Surgical techniques improved. Imaging allowed earlier diagnosis. Intensive care supported recovery that would have been impossible before. These gains often show up as a larger average lifespan, even if the maximum possible lifespan shifts more slowly. That distinction matters. It means medicine has been extraordinarily good at saving lives, and it also shows why longevity science now focuses on extending healthy years in adulthood. Modern care can stabilize blood pressure, manage cholesterol, treat cancers, and support heart function. It can also help people survive strokes and injuries, then return to life through rehabilitation. The fascinating truth is that we are living inside a medical revolution, and much of it is invisible because it feels normal. Many of the extra years we have today come from systems that quietly prevent catastrophe. Clean water and vaccines quietly added years to millions of lives. Some of the greatest longevity breakthroughs were not flashy inventions. They were public health systems. Clean water reduced the spread of diarrheal diseases that once killed children in huge numbers. Sanitation lowered exposure to pathogens in daily life. Vaccines trained immune systems to fight infections that used to sweep through communities and leave death and disability behind. These changes did not add a few days. They added years, often across whole populations. The reason is simple. Preventing an illness early in life prevents a cascade of later consequences, including malnutrition, chronic damage, and lost development. Vaccination also protects people who cannot be vaccinated, because outbreaks struggle to spread when immunity is widespread. Clean water and vaccination are also equalizers. They help entire communities, not only those who can afford individualized care. For a sleepy science listener, this is a reminder that longevity is not only about personal habits. It is also about the invisible infrastructure that keeps bodies from fighting constant battles. When public health works, it feels boring. That boredom is a miracle. Future longevity may include personalized prevention guided by biomarkers. Imagine getting a health forecast that is about your body, not an average person. Biomarkers are measurable signals in blood, saliva, breath, or scans that hint at how your systems are coping. Some reflect inflammation. Others reflect metabolic strain, hormone balance, or organ stress. The exciting shift is moving from treating disease after it appears to preventing it before it gains momentum. A person with early insulin resistance could receive targeted nutrition and activity plans, then see the signal improve. Someone with rising cardiovascular risk might adjust treatment long before symptoms arrive. The story gets even more interesting when biomarkers are combined, because a single number can mislead. Patterns over time are what matter. Personalized prevention is not a crystal ball, and it can create anxiety if used carelessly. Done well, it becomes a compass. It helps you steer by real feedback rather than guessing in the dark. Wearables can detect trends, like rising resting heart rate. A wearable is not just a step counter. It is a tiny observer that notices patterns humans miss. Resting heart rate is a great example because it can change before you feel sick. A slow upward drift can signal poor recovery, mounting stress, dehydration, overtraining, or an oncoming infection. Sleep tracking can show fragmented nights that you barely remember. Some devices estimate heart rate variability, which can reflect the tug-of-war between stress response and recovery. None of these measures are perfect, and they should not replace medical care. Their power is trend detection. Your body is always giving signals, but most are too subtle to spot day by day. Wearables turn those signals into a story you can read. The best use is calm curiosity. When the data changes, you ask why. You adjust sleep, movement, alcohol, or workload, and you watch what happens. That feedback loop can be a quiet form of longevity training. Blood tests may soon track organ aging, not just disease. Traditional labs often ask, is something wrong right now? Newer approaches aim to ask, how old does this system seem? Researchers are developing blood tests that look for patterns tied to specific organs, like the liver, heart, brain, or immune system. The dream is earlier warning. Instead of waiting for a diagnosis, you might learn that one organ is aging faster than the rest. That could guide prevention with more precision, like focusing on blood pressure for vascular aging or strength training for musculoskeletal decline. The science is still evolving, and accuracy must be proven across many populations. There is also a psychological risk. A scary number can cause stress that helps no one. Used wisely, organ aging tests could be like a dashboard, not a verdict. They could help clinicians personalize follow-up and motivate practical changes, while avoiding the trap of treating a lab result as destiny. Gene editing is being explored, but safety remains the biggest barrier. Gene editing captures the imagination because it suggests editing the source code of biology. Tools like CRISPR can target DNA sequences, and researchers are exploring ways to correct harmful mutations or change disease pathways. For longevity, the appeal is clear. If one genetic change raises heart disease risk, why not fix it early? The difficulty is that cells are not isolated. Editing must reach the right tissues, hit the right sequence, and avoid unintended changes. Even a small off-target edit could have serious consequences years later. Delivery is also hard. Getting editing tools into enough cells without triggering immune reactions is a major engineering challenge. There is a second layer of ethics. Editing embryos raises questions about consent, equity, and unintended effects on future generations. The exciting truth is that gene editing is already helping in some disease contexts, and progress is real. The careful truth is that aging is complex, and safety has to lead the story. Organ transplants extend lives, and lab-grown organs may follow. Transplants are one of the clearest examples of modern longevity in action. A failing heart, kidney, or liver can end a life early, and a successful transplant can offer years or decades more. The limiting factor has always been supply. Donor organs are scarce, and many people wait too long. That is why lab-grown organs and bioengineered tissues are so captivating. Researchers are exploring ways to grow tissues from a patient's own cells, which could reduce rejection. Another approach uses scaffolds that guide cells into organ-like structures. Even partial successes matter. A lab-grown patch of heart tissue could support function. A bioengineered blood vessel could improve surgery outcomes. The road is long because organs are not just lumps of cells. They need blood supply, nerves, and precise architecture. Still, the direction is profound. If organ replacement becomes easier, aging could become less limited by single organ failure and more shaped by how well we maintain the whole system. Cancer immunotherapy has transformed outcomes for some patients. For decades, cancer treatment relied heavily on surgery, radiation, and chemotherapy. Immunotherapy changed the storyline by recruiting the body's defenses. Some treatments remove the brakes that prevent immune cells from attacking tumors. Others train immune cells to recognize cancer more clearly, or even engineer immune cells to target specific markers. The most dramatic responses can look like a miracle, with advanced cancers shrinking after treatments that sound almost too clever to be real. The reality is mixed. Not everyone responds. Side effects can be serious because an unleashed immune system can attack healthy tissue. Researchers are working hard to predict who benefits and to reduce toxic reactions. For longevity, the impact is already meaningful. Some cancers that were once rapid death sentences now have long-term survivors. Immunotherapy also teaches a deeper lesson. The immune system is not only a shield against infection, it is a surveillance network against abnormal cells, and strengthening that network may shape healthy aging in ways we are only beginning to understand. AI may spot early disease patterns humans miss in medical scans. A radiologist can read thousands of scans, yet the human eye has limits. AI systems can be trained on enormous datasets, and they can notice faint patterns that predict future problems. A subtle lung nodule, a barely visible change in heart shape, tiny vessel changes in the brain. The promise is earlier detection and better triage, so the most urgent cases get attention quickly. Another benefit is consistency. Machines do not get tired at the end of a long shift, though they can inherit bias from the data they were trained on. That is why validation matters. AI must be tested across different hospitals, scanners, and populations. The most compelling vision is partnership. Clinicians bring context, judgment, and ethics. AI brings pattern recognition at scale. Together, they could make medicine more preventive. If disease is caught earlier, treatment can be less invasive, recovery can be easier, and the long arc of health can stay smoother. Aging research now targets processes of aging, not only single diseases. For a long time, medicine fought aging indirectly by fighting its consequences, like heart disease, cancer, and dementia. A newer approach asks a bolder question. What if we target the underlying processes that make many diseases more likely? Researchers study mechanisms like cellular senescence, chronic inflammation, impaired repair, and metabolic dysregulation. The idea is not to chase immortality. It is to delay the moment when multiple systems start failing together. If you slow that convergence, you may reduce many diseases at once. This approach is hard to test because aging unfolds slowly and clinical trials need clear outcomes. Scientists use biomarkers and functional measures to shorten the feedback loop while still respecting safety. The excitement comes from leverage. Treating one disease at a time can feel like plugging leaks. Targeting aging processes is like reducing pressure in the whole system. If it works, health span could expand, and older age could feel less like a cascade of problems and more like a steady continuation of life. Living longer could mean redesigning cities for movement and connection. Longevity is not only inside your body, it is also around your body. City design can make healthy choices automatic or difficult. Sidewalks that are safe invite walking. Parks invite daylight and social life. Bike lanes reduce reliance on cars, and they turn errands into exercise. Public benches help older adults rest without needing to stay home. Good transit reduces isolation for people who no longer drive. Even noise and air quality matter, because chronic exposure shapes stress and cardiovascular risk. What makes this so fascinating is the scale. A single person can decide to walk more, but a city can decide that walking is normal for everyone. Social connection can also be engineered by design through community spaces, markets, libraries, and events that make casual interaction easy. If we want longer lives that feel good, we may need environments that support knees, lungs, and friendships at the same time. The future of longevity could be a map, not a pill. The biggest longevity wins often come from boring basics, done consistently. It is tempting to believe the secret to long life is exotic, expensive, or hidden. Most evidence points somewhere simpler. Sleep that is regular. Movement that happens most days. Food that supports stable blood sugar and healthy body composition. Blood pressure controlled early. Smoking avoided. Vaccines and screenings used thoughtfully. Relationships maintained. Stress given real recovery time. These are not dramatic. They are powerful because they compound. A single workout changes little. A year of workouts changes a body. A decade changes a life. The same is true for sleep and nutrition. Consistency also creates resilience. When illness or injury arrives, a well-maintained body has more reserve to draw on. The fascinating part is that basics are not one size fits all. The details vary by person, culture, and constraints. Yet the principles stay steady across the science. Longevity often looks like ordinary care repeated until it becomes a lifestyle, then carried forward quietly into old age. As we come to the end of our journey through longevity, you might notice how wide the story really is. It begins in the smallest places, in the quiet work of cells repairing themselves, in the rhythms that guide sleep, appetite, and energy. It stretches outward into blood vessels that feed every organ, into muscles that keep us steady, and into the immune system that learns, adapts, and sometimes needs little extra support as the years pass. We wandered through the strange genius of nature, through whales and sharks and bats that carry time differently. We traced the human side too, through habits that compound slowly, through prevention that works best before trouble arrives, and through the simple truth that connection, purpose, and routine can shape a life as much as any lab result. Now, you do not need to hold any of it tightly. Let it settle like snow in a globe, drifting down on its own. Allow your forehead to soften. Let your jaw unclench. Let your shoulders sink away from your ears. Take a slower breath in, then an even slower breath out, as if you are emptying the day. If you enjoyed this winding path through the science of a long life, you might like, subscribe, or leave a comment to share what stayed with you. It helps this channel reach others who need a calm place to land. And if you are still awake, there will be another video waiting on screen. You can let it play and follow that next thread of wonder wherever it leads. For now, rest can be enough. The night can do its quiet work. Sleep well, and good night.